So, in light of the top 50 PLL players voted on by the players, I have my top PLL players by position. Starting off with the goaltenders. At the bottom, I have Matt DeLuca. He doesn't have a solidified starting position. His team overall didn't do that great. Hot and cold starts. I think that he had flashes of good and startability in him, but nothing crazy. Um, so he's at the bottom. Next up, we have John Galloway. I think that he's good. He's not a liability in that, but I just don't think that he's as talented as the other individuals on this list. Above him, we have Adam Gittleman. I think he's better than Drew Adams, but Adam Gittleman, it's tough because he splits time, which not only I think deteriorates the probability of success for the team, but it also just makes it harder to look at his stats. If he comes in and just has like a bad quarter, that's half his game right there. Instead of a bad quarter not being someone's, it would be a quarter of a game, and a quarter of a game doesn't really seem that everyone has a bad quarter of a game. A game's a long time. Above him, I have Jack Concannon. Jack Concannon's a close fourth on this list, or close third. Um, I have Tim Troutner above him. I think those two, both younger guys, both guys that definitely aren't below four, but definitely aren't above three. Either of them you could really switch around. I like Tim Troutner more than I like Jack Concannon, mainly because of I mean, Tim Troutner is very clutch, and Jack Concannon, we haven't seen him in the playoffs yet. So overall, it may be a little bit of, you know, um, recency bias, but I have Tim Troutner at three, Jack Concannon at four. And then at two, we have Kyle Bernlohr. I believe that Kyle Bernlohr is the second best goaltender in the league. You could definitely make an argument that he could be number one, but I don't think anyone could really make that big of an argument that Blaze Reardon is not the number one goaltender in the league. Not only was he a fucking backbone for that team for last year and this year, but he brought a team that was winless pretty much all the way to the fucking finals. Um, Overall, he was a stud in that. He's a magician. He's a fucking big boy in there too. Um, you don't see too many players like him that can. He himself he is like a Marty Brodeur. I mean, you really can't score on this motherfucker. Yeah, it might be that he's also got good defense with Jack Rowlett and fucking Newman. Um, but overall, I mean, you can't take away the shit that fucking Blaze Reardon does in that. He really is a magician. I have so much respect for him. It's always tough going up against him. Kyle Bernlohr, I don't want to put any smoke with him, but second best, that's not bad either. But I have to give it to Blaze. I think Blaze is way more valuable to his team than Kyle is to his team. Therefore, Blaze gets one, Kyle gets two, Troutner three, Concannon four, Gittleman five, Galloway six, DeLuca seven. Next up, we have our top face-off guys. An honorable mention at the bottom because the Redwoods have such horrible face-off men. We have Greg Garellian. He was a tank the 2019 season. Did not play the 2020 season due to retirement. Fucking respect to him. Above him, so I have really only a top four. Everyone else either splits or doesn't really have a solidified face-off man. Everyone else here is solidified. They're not going with anyone else. They didn't even bring a fucking second face-off man. This is how much respect these guys, their teams have for these guys. At four, we have Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly dropped down a little bit. A couple surprises up top. Had a very rough 2020 season. It's only 2 weeks though, so it's only so much you can really take from it. But tough 2020 season, good 2019 season. I'm definitely expecting a bounce back from him. There's no way that he could be that bad again in back-to-back seasons. Overall, though, I think that he does a good job. Fucking winning faceoffs, being a big boy. Above him, though, I have Trevor Baptiste. Excuse me. I have Trevor Baptiste at three, mainly because he didn't do that great last year. Again, only 2 weeks, was the best faceoff guy by far in 2019. So it'd be tough to say that he's not the second best or maybe even the best. But the reason why I have Connor Farrell at the second best is mainly because he went from splitting face-offs into becoming his own face-off man and only did better. Therefore, you really have to give it to the guy that, if you go from a diminished role into a lead role and you only get better, it's tough to say that going from a lead role to a lead role and getting worse, even though the sample size is small, it is tough to give Trevor Baptiste the 2 and Karen Farrell the 3 when that's the case. But doesn't really fucking matter because either way, at number 1, we have Joseph Nardella. I mean, just an absolute fucking tank last year. He was, if he had been the reason why the Whipsnakes won last year. I mean, he had a crazy amount of offense delivered by himself. I mean, won so many more faceoffs than anybody else out there. I mean, you could tell immediately that the Whipsnakes were gonna win games because the other team just couldn't get the fucking ball. And if you needed to score 2 goals and there was only fucking 67 seconds on left, you were like, fuck, man, the best that's gonna happen is we're gonna get the ball back with 15 seconds, and it's gonna be in the back of our own fucking. It's gonna be behind our own net because they're not gonna turn over the ball. They're gonna keep it, maybe even get a shot on net. It is a tough game to play when you have to face off against Joseph Nardella. He is a coach's dream to have, especially a defensive coach or a scheming coach that loves the game plan. Joseph Nardella, last year especially, was your fucking guy. So, number 1, Nardella, 2, Farrell, 3, Baptiste, 4, Kelly, and an honorable mention for Greg Gorelian. And now to my top attackmen. We're going to start off at the bottom. I didn't even really number these, but at the bottom we have Connor Fields. The 2020 season was not a Connor Fields year. They actually did better when he was taken off the field, and there was actual games that he was benched. Whether that was, again, the small sample size or the fact that maybe he just didn't fit into the Chaos's schemes anymore. Maybe they need to move him. Maybe he needs a new home. But overall, I don't think that's the case. I think that you definitely have to ride with Connor Fields. Maybe you trade him mid-season next year if you continue to get a lack of production out of him. But overall, his 2019 season was a very good year. Tons of goals, tons of production. So I wouldn't pull the plug on him just yet. Up next, we have a breakout player. Personally, one of my breakout players of the year is Curtis Dixon. He was just a fucking beast, man. I mean, him playing on the Chaos was just a fucking spectacle to see. He scored timely goals and a lot of them. So I had a lot of respect for Curtis Dixon. Up next, we have Eric Law. Eric Law, I thought overall, it's tough being on that Atlas team because they just don't get a lot of airtime. I think he's personally an underrated player. Sometimes I even think that he's a better attackman than Rob Pennell. I'm sorry. Um, um, Eric Law overall, though, I thought that it always does a good job of being a good player. I don't think that you ever see him wilding out. I don't ever think you see him missing. I think that he's a great consistency, and I think teams need consistency paired with superstars. Kieran McArdle comes up next. Overall, I thought he did well. A bit slept on. I remember a lot of games of him having great stats, having great games, having great moments, but overall was not as big as the individuals in front of him. And one of the individuals in front of him did not play in the 2020 season, and that's Jules Heningberg. Jules Heningberg, although, cannot be slept on. His 2019 season was phenomenal. He was one of the top 5 attackmen, period. Really can't argue that all that much, especially from a productivity standpoint. You could tell immediately that without Jules Heningberg, that the rest of the team was really struggling, really having a difficult time, not only scoring and making production, putting the ball in the net, but they also had a huge issue when it came down to things like just even setting up plays, getting schemes going, ball movement. The overall offensive flow of the game was definitely disturbed without having Jules Heningberg, just reinforcing how important he is and his worth. Up next, we have Will Manny. Will Manny is a pretty shifty player with a great shot. Will Manny is a player that you always have to keep your eye on for, and when he gets the ball, it's not in his stick for long because it's typically going in the back of the net. Um, I mean, he's paired up with a bunch of great players, so you got to give him that. He's got guys with him like Marcus Holman and Tom Schreiber and Grant Cement, so it's hard to say that he's all by himself doing it, kind of like a Eric Law. Although you have to give respect to the other guys around him as well. But Will Manny overall is just a fucking spectacle to watch. I mean, he's just, oh my god, it's so hard. His highlight reels are fucking underrated, man, to say the least. Next, we have Justin Gutterding. I think Justin Gutterding is definitely a slept on player. From 2019 to 2020, he was one of the most productive players, especially being on a poor team like the Chrome the first season, going into a more successful Chrome team the second season. Overall, I think that he does great. He has a great partner down there who I'll talk about in a little bit. Overall, though, I think Justin Gutterding does a great job putting the fucking ball in the net. He has a wicked shot, especially when he has time and space. He not only knows how to utilize his body, but also knows how to utilize the defenders against themselves by being able to put up screens, to be able to find places where the defender is having difficulty getting to him. Hands free, time and space, the ball will be in the back of the net if it's given to Justin Gutterding. Next, we have Josh Byrne. Again, another breakout player of the year. Overall, was just a fucking stud. Um, that's really all I can say about him. I think he's just overall underrated. Um, yeah, that's fucking Josh Byrne for you. It's hard. It's hard on a team that has so many people that you kind of need to look at, especially from the midfield standpoint. I feel like Josh Byrne was more or less under the radar this year. I think that he deserves a lot more. That's why I have him. I think this is 6. And now at 5, I have Rob Pennell. PLL wise, hasn't been super productive. I think the ball gets stuck in his stick a little bit. Um, you only had 2 weeks to really play games with your team, so no wonder that he was going to have the greatest production. But it's hard. You can't put him at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 because of the individuals that are above him deserve it. But I can't put him at like 9, 10, 11, even though his production points says that he deserves to be there. Overall, he himself, that he is not there. Therefore, I'm not going to put him there. That'd be disrespectful. Um, so I have Rob Pennell there. Expect him to go up if there's fucking fantasy Premier Lacrosse. I would pick him up as a draft round, later round draft pick. I think that he overall would be a good person to add. Scores goals, gets assists, has a balanced attack, and um, I don't know. It's hard to pass him up, but it's also hard after seeing that 2020 season. Overall, for anyone that's really on the Atlas, besides maybe Costabile. I mean, he was the only guy who looked like he had promise and was getting better throughout the season. Above him, we have Jordan Wolf. I think Jordan Wolf might be one of the most underrated players in the PLL, period. When it comes down to Jordan Wolf, it's really the ability of his ball movement and his shot selection. I think that he does a great job of seeing defenders and moving the ball. I think that he does stuff that Eric Law does, he does it to a better ability. There's a reason why Justin Gutterding has a fuck ton of goals, and it's because of Jordan Wolf. Jordan Wolf is a great pair for him. They work really well together. And I think Jordan Wolf does a great job, not only running the offense, but also giving great ball movement from behind the net. Next, we have Grant Cement. It's hard to say that he's not a top 3 player. If you just watched him last year, a couple, rookie mistakes or rookie, having to shed the skin of like a new team, not really knowing anyone. You're a rookie in the league. It must be not only scary, but anxiety ridden. I think he did a very good job with that. He was fucking killing it with assists, man. And then he had a whole bunch of goals too in a couple of games. So you can really tell that if they don't If they respect him too much, he's just going to feed the ball. If they don't respect him enough, he's going to put the ball in the back of the net. Either way, it's so hard to defend him, and it's so hard to defend the fucking archers in general. So that's why Grant Smith's at 3. I think he's a great piece for that offense, and I think that he is just going to be sick for years to come. At number 2, hard to distinguish number 1 and number 2, both on the same team, so they kind of work as a pair. But I have to put Zed Williams at number 2. I mean, he had what, 20 something goals in fucking 4, 5, 6 games? Like, holy shit, man. He and the fucking championship game of him just fucking killing it. He overall, man, was just mind blowing. There's a reason why he won the fucking Tackman of the Year. Um, I mean, just watch the film. Just watch the film. Literally, just watch the film. Some of the goals that he had were unreal. He is gonna be a fucking menace playing on that team. And then, last but not least, obviously, we have Matt Rambo. I don't really need to say much about him. MVP last year, MVP this year. Overall, you just got to give it to him. He's probably going to be the best PLO player voted on by the players. He's big, he's physical, he scored a shit ton last year, had a ton of assists this year. Apparently, he does it all. Give it up for fucking Matt Rambo. So we got Rambo 1, Williams 2, Amen 3, Wolf at 4, Pennell at 5, Burns 6, Gutterding 7, Manny 8, Henningberg 9, McCardle 10, and then Law 11, Dixon 12, Connor Fields 13. Now we're moving on to offensive midfielders. We're going to start at the bottom here. We have a whole bunch of people here. We're going to start with Zach Currier. I thought that Zach Currier was good, not great. Definitely thought that I was going to see a little bit more from him. He was really hyped up overall. I just don't think that he delivered as much as I thought he was going to. Although I still have to give it up for him. He is still a great lacrosse player. And he's still one of the best lacrosse players on his team. So we have Zach Currier down here at the bottom. Next we have Connor Busek. I think he's a little bit slept on. He's a really good midfielder for the Atlas. And especially when it comes down to Paul Rabel with his lackings. I think Connor Busek does a good job of carrying some of that weight. Up next after that, we have Joe Walters. Joe Walters for the Redwoods. I think that he does a great job of being not only a good offensive but also a good defensive midfielder if he's ever stuck out there. He's knowledgeable. He's smarter than he is skillful. So therefore, I have him on the list. I think that he's a good piece. Not great last year, but good enough to be on the list. Had a very good 2019 season as well. Paul Rabel, we have after that. I have John Haas above him. Not sure if that should have been the case. I think that John Haas is good, but Paul Rabel, it was just difficult, man. 5 points, 1 goal, 4 assists, and the fucking 4 or 5 games. I mean, not only do we all see that he needs to do more, but he has even acknowledged that he has to do more. So that's easy enough to say. Next up, John Haas. John Haas overall had a pretty good season. I think he was one of the better breakout players on his team. I don't think that he was anything super special. I mean, there's obviously better players on the team than him, but overall, I have to give it up to him. I think that he was one of the better players overall on the Whips. Next up, I have Dane Smith. Dane Smith is a player that I love to watch. I thought that he did fucking work. He had 6 goals. Great number by the way, too. 92. Great, and you can tell if you see the number 92, you know that you're a fucking Canadian player right there. So I got Dane Smith right there. I thought that he was a good player that you could kind of rely on, especially for the chaos in their ups and downs of last season. Up next, we have who I think might be, a top 5 midfielder in just a couple years, is Brian Costabile. Overall, you gotta, when you're looking at his shot, he is something else, man. He's very, I don't want to say, it's hard to, I can almost compare him to to a Perkovic. He's a bigger dude, great shot, can shoot from range, kind of more or less, a little bit smarter. He's still kind of young, but he will find his pockets. It'll be easy playing with guys like fucking Eric Law and Rob Pennell. He'll get it together, and he'll be. I mean, he already has it together, but he'll get it fine detailed, and he'll really be a great player next year. After that, I have Jordan McIntosh. I thought McIntosh was good. Uh, a ton of goals out of him. Not much to say about. His game is not inherently impressing when you watch him, although his name does stick in your mind because he's always on the score sheet. Christian Mazzone, I thought, was one of the better players of last year. Christian Mazzone had 9 goals, no 2-pointers, no assists. He was a fucking beast. His shooting percentage was 69%, so you knew when number 6 had it in his stick, it was going in the back of the net. Paired up really well with Ryan Ambler. Ryan Ambler had a fucking sick year, too. He had some fucking crazy goals. But I thought that Christian Mazzone, 9 goals in 6 games is nothing to sneeze at, especially from a midfielder. Up next, we have Sergio Perkovic. I thought that he finally figured out how the fuck to play his position. He had 6 2-pointers in 6 games. That's 1 per game. That's fucking sweet. I think that he needs to be able to hit the net a little bit more. So does everyone else on the Redwoods, though. I thought that Perkovic had a good season, not a great season, although that's how I feel about the Redwoods in general. So he's kind of where he needs to be. I thought he did better than Miles Jones, to be honest. Although Miles Jones, new, same thing like all these other guys on new teams. It's going to take a little bit more time than just what had happened to get him where he needs to be production-wise. After Sergio, I had Ned Crotty. I believe that Ned missed a couple games. He only played 4 games. I think the Chrome had 5. Had 3 goals, 7 assists, had a really good 2019 series. I definitely think that they missed him a little bit. I think he only played like a little bit of one game and then missed another game. So missing him a little bit. But I think Ned Crotty is one of those players that you always have to look out for. He's got a vicious beard, and I love seeing him on the lacrosse field. Hopefully he gets a little bit more airtime next year that isn't him sitting on the stands due to injury. Up next, we have Miles Jones. I believe this is our top 4 right here. So Ned Crotty's 5. Miles Jones, we have at 4. Miles Jones, I can't get away from the fact that 4 goals, 2 2-pointers, 5 assists, kind of balanced. 20 shooting percentage, not very good. He's a big body. He just needs to know how to use his talents in the system of the Redwoods. Whether that's a coaching problem or a Miles Jones problem or a missing Jules Henningberg problem, I'm not sure what exactly it was. That entire team overall had a bad couple weeks, but I still would say that Miles Jones is someone that you need to look out for. He's a big-bodied motherfucker. Someone that most people probably aren't looking for is Jake Fracaro. I had him pretty high. I thought that he was underrated last year, just overall in his production on the Chaos. Even though, his stats might not stand out to you, he came through in a lot of big points in a lot of big ways. Overall, I have to give it to him that I think that his 2019 season was pretty good too. 27 points, 11 goals. Not super, super crazy. He had a great shots on goal percentage and had a great 2-pointer percentage. So I give that to him. I think he's more one of those players that when I just watch him play, I think that he's much better. And he's also went from attack to midfield and still had great production. So that's why it's kind of hard to put him lower or put him higher because we just have this small sample size of him. But I remember when watching him, and when you look back at tape, you can just always see that he's a very smart player, and I think that his smarts go over the physicality of guys like Miles Jones and Sergio Perkovic. At number 2, we have no other than Mike Chanenchuk. Channy is a deadly threat from the 2-pointer. Not super productive in the 2020 season, although you still got to give it to him. He had 6 goals, 2 2-pointers, 4 assists, 14 points in 6 games. I would say that's not super productive, but that is not a Mike Chanenchuk esque season. Actually, no, it is, to be honest. It's just less 2 pointers than we're used to. Had 7 the year before. I guess 2 in whatever amount of games still isn't too bad. Chanenchuk overall, though, great shot. I mean, it's not even the fact that it's hard, it's just so quick, if that makes sense. It's not fast, it's quick. It's in out, it's in the back of the net. It's so it takes such a short time for it to get there, and it's weird. It's not fast, it's quick. At number one, who would have fucking guessed it? Tom Schreiber, my favorite NFL. Oh my god, my favorite PLL player. I think that he should have been fucking PLL Player of the Year last year. Um, his 2019 season, we'll just throw out the fucking numbers at you. 15 goals, 2 2-pointers, 18 assists. Not too shabby. And then at his 2020 season, a little bit of a dip, but still, you know, when you add someone like Grant Ment, there's a nice balance. He had 12 goals. I believe, third in the league, or tied for third in the league, with guys like Jay Carlson. Jay Carlson, man, he's a fucking tank. He's a guy that, you could probably put him on the top attackman as well. Jay Carlson had a fucking crazy year last year. Not to get ahead of myself, though. Um, Tom Schreiber, there's not enough I could say, not enough positive things I could say about Tom Schreiber. At LSM, starting from bottom to top, my honorable mention is Brian Karalunas. Not sure what happened to him. I believe it was an injury. He had a great season with the Redwoods, and now I'm not sure exactly where he is right now, but looking to see him back in 2021. At the bottom, we have Craig Schick. Nothing against him. Not bad. Not spectacular. Not much to say. Rylan Reese had a good season, rookie year. Overall, had a pretty, wasn't getting exposed, but wasn't the most dynamic threat on the field. I don't think that Water Dogs defense is the greatest. BJ Grill, good, undersized. Brody Merrill, good, older. Rylan Reese, good, young. So, a little bit of etching out having to be done over there, but I think overall they're on a good pace, and I think Rylan Reese is a good player to have, and he'll only get better as years go on. Reese Eddy, we have. Oh my god, I skipped Joel White. Joel White, we also have Rylan Reese, and then Reese Eddy. Reese Eddy had a pretty good season, a lot of caused turnovers, but the real three that I want to focus on are the top three. At Scott Ratliff. Scott Ratliff not only has great hair, but also has a great shot. He's not only effective on the defensive side of the field, but the offensive side of the field. He really is a scoring threat, and he really can dish the ball. When it's a fast break, you slide to Scott Ratliff. Next, we have Michael Earnhardt. Not only was the goaltender sick for the Whip Snakes, but also their LSM and also their attackmen, more or less their midfielders. So to top it off, their long stick midfielder was one of the best in the league. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. It's hard to explain defensiveness. He had 26 ground balls, great. I mean, especially when it comes down to, I didn't even mention the fucking face-off guy. You know, overall, doesn't make mistakes. Consistent, strong. You can put almost anybody on him. Fucking Michael Earnhardt. And at number one, we have John Sexton. John Sexton, not as astonishing numbers as anyone else, but again, that Redwoods defense is a defense like no other. I think every single defenseman on that team could be the best defenseman in the entire PLL. So therefore, John Sexton, number one, best LSM, best defense. That's the way it goes. Next, I'm not going to get into detail with defensive midfielders. It is super hard to get into detail about defensive midfielders. They're extremely underrated. If you have a short stick defensive midfielder that could lock down someone, it is priceless. So we're going to run through them. I wish that I could give in more analytics, But that's the way it goes when it comes down to defense. That's why I put this towards the end. So we have Nick Ocello at the bottom. Not the bottom. He's a top 10 guy. Next we have Mark Lucini, Will Haas, Eli Salama, Steve DiNapoli. Steve DiNapoli had a fucking great season, man. Once you start getting up here, you really start being able to notice the names. Um, Patrick Harbison had a fucking great season as well. Uh, Pat Resch, Jack Neer. Jack Neer had a fucking six season as well. You could see all three fucking Redwoods guys on this list. Next we have Dominic Alexander, possibly the best defensive midfielder, but it has to go to Ty Warner. Ty Warner with the Whip Snakes. Who would have fucking thought the best fucking defensive midfielder goes to one of the fucking Whip Snakes guys? Yeah, as if they don't have enough dudes in the fucking top 10. And to edge it out, we go to the top close defensemen. Starting off at the bottom, we start with Brody Merrill. He's a smart guy, runs the offense, great overall. May had been his last season, may have a couple more seasons in him, trying to really groom that defense for the Water Dogs. But he's a living legend. Give it up for fucking Brody Merrill. Next we have Tim Mueller. Tim Mueller again, fucking who would have thought more fucking Whip Snakes guys on on this list. Again, good season. It's hard to explain without throwing out stats how good of defenders these guys are. Up next we have Tucker Durkin. Then we have BJ Grill. After that, Matt Dunn. And then Jesse Bernhardt. Jesse Bernhardt was a standout player this year. Having not had played in 2019, playing in 2020, had a great year. Michael Manley had a sick year as well. Him overall, it's hard to not had put him up there. Then we have Matt McMahon. Matt McMahon is someone that you will hear about fucking one way or another on that fucking field. Jared Newman we then have. Jared Newman has a great story. Check him out on Unbuckled Chin Straps. Then we have Eddie Glazner. Eddie Glazner could be number one, but there are some guys that you just can't take away from him. He might be the smartest defenseman in the league, though. After that, we have Jack Rowlett. Fucking sick guy. Can lock down almost anybody. It was exposed a couple times, actually. I don't want to say exposed, but had a couple down games. Overall, you really got to give it to him that he is fucking sick. Great number 299, Jack Rowlett. Then we have Cade Van Raphorst. I think he's underrated. Has a crazy amount of caused turnovers, crazy amount of ground balls. His stats overall are fucking ridiculous. And there's really not another great guy. I mean, you have Tucker Durkin, Craig Chick. I mean, one of my bottom LSMs. So you really got to give it out to him. He has a lot of load on his back. And number one is Garrett Epple. Only if he's not up against, what was his name? I forget his name, but I'll tell you in a second. But I think Garrett Epple, great guy to have on the team, especially for physicality points, can shut down almost anybody. Does have a bit of a hot head though, does get in trouble, sometimes thrown out of games. He's got to be around here somewhere. I forget what the fuck his name was. Matt Gaudette. Unless he's against Matt Gaudette, he's not a number one player. That's it though. That's the fucking list. We'll see how the PLL compares to it. God bless. Peace out.